Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Paul.
And this is The Truth About.
Confusion filled sea of doubt. It's time to hear the truth about. Confusion filled sea of doubt. It's time to hear the truth about.
News.
Okay, Laura, so this week I wanted to talk about the news.
And we mean news, not nudes.
Nudes. The nudes. No, the news. And this is another subject, isn't it, that I think in recent times is kind of a little bit more controversial?
I think the news has always been like that, though, hasn't it? Because of the different types of news media and how it's written. And whether you can class a lot of it as journalism.
Well, this is the thing. So that's why I kind of want to do an episode about it. Because I kind of feel like modern media and the news is getting a bad rep these days. And I'll be honest, I would probably categorise myself as well as having that opinion. But I think the problem is sensationalisation and the extraordinary topics that are designed to grab our attention. That's kind of the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. And what are we actually interested in as the British nation, I guess? Well, as the human race.
Yeah, exactly.
What actually interests us? Is it specific news? Is it drama? Is it good news?
Well, that's actually the thing, because the truth of the news, the truth of, what the news is it's a reflection of society. That's the scary thing. Because in all honesty, the news has to captivate us, doesn't it? It's designed to keep us listening and watching. Do you remember that period where I was like, well, I kind of don't really listen to the news now,
No.
by choice. I don't wake up in the morning and go, cool, what's on, the news kind of thing. But let's face it, I went through that time of going, okay, right, I'm only going to follow positive news outlooks, and this new medication's been done or this, whatever. But the truth is, it's not very popular.
No, and a lot of news, even news that isn't particularly positive, can sometimes not get as much attention.
Exactly.
Because some people just don't care. And you get that a lot this is what is so great about social media. It makes you a lot more aware. But I can't remember what I was listening to. Oh, yeah, it was the book Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. I want to make sure I get the title right. It's a long title. But they discuss after the Paris attacks how Facebook created this new profile picture template and things like that.
Yeah.
And then not long after, they did one regarding, see, this is where my ignorance kicks in, about troubles that happened somewhere in Africa, I believe. Yeah. And that was 7 months after the incident. And it was as if Facebook was like, well, this kind of thing gets attention. Let's start talking about things that we should have been talking about 7 months ago.
But this is the problem, though, don't you think? That there is as we speak right now, there is something happening that we don't know about. And it could be just as newsworthy, or it could gain a lot of attention. And I guess that's kind of like the charity thing as well, isn't it? That's why it's important that celebrities obviously talk about stuff and, politics, all this kind of stuff, because once they bring attention to it, it does actually then bring it out to the masses or whatever.
And that is pretty much how I find out a lot of my news, from celebrities sharing things on Instagram stories, from people that do post a lot of newsworthy topics, but aren't actually mainstream news.
Well, this was kind of the kind of big thing regarding all of this, because that's in reality our fear is used to draw us in to the news. So coronavirus, pandemic, murder, kidnap, violence, these are all obviously appealing topics. Obviously, as much as they're not.
It's the thing. As humans, we are attracted to things that we feel as if probably couldn't ever happen to us. And it's the same with people are obsessed with murder documentaries.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a market for it. There's a reason why things on Netflix, they're focusing a lot on, all of these really depressing topics, but we are so intrigued by them because as quote mark normal people, we think that this can ever happen. No. This isn't real. It doesn't feel realistic to us, does it?
Yeah. I mean, that's really the whole thing, isn't it? You know, trial by media is now like a larger thing, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
like there's so much within it. But that's kind of the thing. Like now that we can, we might think it's now time to throw away traditional news sources. You know, people only get their information from Twitter. And all of that kind of stuff, which sounds relatively positive, but to be honest, there is still a lot of positive that comes out of local newspapers, the mainstream media, and all that. Even though obviously we want to think that there isn't. There's been a lot of big stories that have actually broken, and have only been brought to our attentions from those huge news sources. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I don't know, like devil's advocate, isn't it? Really, of just like it's not all just.
No,
negative,
it's the same. Like you get a lot of amazing stories from terrible stories.
Yeah.
You see a lot of good in people, which you may not have seen if certain tragedies hadn't existed. And also some amazing leaps in technology and in science and things like that. Like at the moment, they're talking about how the vaccine for the coronavirus is a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And you just think, wow, that's incredible. Look how far we've come in just a few months.
Yeah.
From going, right, is this going to be the end of the world, or is this going to, change the way we look at science and how we are as a society? And I do think it's incredible that you can get good stories out of bad stories from the news, really.
Well, yeah, that's actually like a huge thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like that's such a positive, kind of thing. I mean, I've written down a few other little stories that have kind of come out because of the mainstream media kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, these are obviously for my interest, so there's a bias involved anyway. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's
exactly,
not, which is funny, but it's like. The Edward Snowden, making us aware that our privacy wasn't very private. That was a huge thing. And obviously, did I make you watch that documentary?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So obviously, he took it to those news sources, didn't he? You know what I mean?
And he was one of these people that watching it, you just like, you're a fool. Like let people live in ignorance. But at the same time, you're like, what a brave guy to be going.
Selfless.
After these very powerful people that at a click of a finger can destroy his life, and in a way they have, and he had to give up his life with his girlfriend and seeing his family. He couldn't see them, and I'm not sure if what's happened since, to be honest.
He's now living with his girlfriend. I think it's still his girlfriend.
And it was just like, God, you're changing your life so people know the truth, and it's quite an amazing thing to do.
It's totally remarkable. But you think it's only like him going obviously to those news sources, which, and to be fair, they were brave, weren't they, to actually take that on board? Because obviously they then became targets, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. And you may think, oh well, is that really classed as bravery? It's not the same as going into war, but you are still putting yourself at risk. You can ruin your whole entire life just by speaking up. And it's similar. Sorry, I know you've got a list of people,
but there's not that many.
That documentary that we watched about that guy who says he worked at, oh god, what is it, not in Roswell, the other place, the alien place.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
The alien dude.
He was like, why would I have come out with this story and said all of this stuff when it completely has ruined my life? So in a way, you kind of...
That was confusing.
Yeah, because you kind of want to go, well, maybe...
Why would you do that if that wasn't true? But then again...
At the same time, you
believe a lot of stuff.
What he may have seen and what he may have done may have been very true to him.
Yeah.
But the reality is that could have just been a big decoy or a trust exercise, and he can take a lie detector test and it could be completely true,
but he believes it.
Exactly. And he took that, he released all of that information to the news media, and now we get to hear about it on podcasts and through Netflix documentaries. I mean,
exactly. Netflix has been groundbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's like
trial by media and what we
so
think of
many
people.
years of delayed information. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting story.
Plus, it's always going to have a bias. News is always going to have a bias.
Yeah.
Hence why in court cases, you're in the most notable ones, obviously, that you're not allowed to watch the news, or
Yeah.
you know, you have to. I mean, it was like the OJ trial, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
there was so much influences, outside
And
influences,
same
and things
with
like
Madeleine
that.
McCann.
Yeah.
The media was like, one moment it's like, it's the mum, they're guilty. And then,
Terrible.
I feel so sorry
Terrible.
for her. Oh, actually, we've decided that.
But let's face it, we were the same as well. Like,
Oh
as you're
my-
watching it, episode by
Well,
episode.
that documentary, yeah, 1 minute you're like, no, it can't be the parents. Then,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's definitely the parents. And then you're like, no, it's just the mum.
But this is totally
crazy.
But this is the heart of it. This is what I'm saying. This is a huge. You know, the news is a reflection of us. If we stop getting interested by stuff, if we're only suddenly influenced, you know, or happy to hear about positive news, then guess what? The news is only going to be positive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that.
It's about ratings.
So it's our fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm, like, because you know, growing up, I've always been the thing of like, oh, you know, the newsman, you know, they're trying to get us, you know, all this kind of stuff. But it's like, in reality, we're like to blame.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're only
are
to blame
influenced
for
by
what
it.
we're being told, not
Exactly.
actually what's happening.
Yeah.
And you know, that I'm sure there's billions of pieces of news that can go out. But
My favourite one, though, you remember I read this book and I was just going on about it forever, and then I made everyone learn about it. But that Bad Blood book about Elizabeth Smart, you know, the startup, you know, where there's this new device, and basically, you know, a few pricks of blood, and then suddenly, you know, you're going to know if you've got cancer, and all this kind of stuff. But it went so far, and all these like NDA non-disclosures and all this kind of stuff. Whereas basically, like, no one knew the truth. Even like the Secretary of State who invested money in it didn't even know.
No.
You know, it's just great. And it's really only the media in that, which actually, I think it was, see, I'm rubbish with these things, I know. I think it was like New York Post or something. You know, don't quote me on that. But they obviously uncovered it. And then it was only once that happened where actually people started to go, oh my God, this is ludicrous. You know, like this is a thing of science fiction.
yeah,
you know?
and that's what it is when you get some certain news stories. You're just like, nah. And you even watch films and you're like, that would never happen. But the reality is, it probably does.
Yeah, oh, totally, yeah. But like from the flip side, there's so many like news articles that have actually broke on social media.
Yeah.
I was doing a little research on that as well. You know, like the royal engagement was the first time that the royal family had actually gone to social media first. You know, as opposed to. Which kind of does show a big change, don't you think? Like,
yeah, it is a leap, but you think about how many people use social media and how many people will sit down and listen to the 6 o'clock news. They want people to get these things instantly.
Yeah.
And most of us, unashamedly, will be scrolling through our phone and go, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, there's some people that do watch the news all day.
Yeah.
And those are the people, and no offense if you're one of these people, but they kind of have a bleak outlook on things. And it's no wonder, really, is it?
Yeah.
It's the same if you're staring at Twitter all day.
Yeah, and like really freestyling it as we always do. But yeah, I remember this whole thing of like, I don't want to go too much into politics and stuff like that. But when people were voting for something, let's say, it was one of those things like, I don't even know who voted for this person or for this thing, you know, whatever. And it's like it was only at that point really it was brought to my attention, like. Well, to be honest, the people that you're following probably have similar views to you.
Yeah, exactly. So you probably follow them anyway.
Yeah.
And so...
If you only follow liberals, then you're probably going to have a more liberal... You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, whereas, you know, that's the kind of thing, isn't it? So
and
that's
a lot of
thing.
people can be quite silent on certain topics. So you feel as if that you're only viewing the people that are talking.
Yeah.
Again, it's the same with news. There might be stuff happening that we will never get told about.
Totally.
And so that will never be out there.
I mean, it's probably whatever it is, but I find that fascinating, don't you? Like, something could be happening right now. Like, I mean, it could be anything. It could be like...
Well, this is why you love stories like about the CIA and, you know, Secret Service.
Undercover spies, you know.
Because you get all these stories and it's like, wait, that happens.
But that is the thing, isn't it? Is there more to this? You know what I mean? Is there more to this story? Is there this? Is there that? Obviously, I don't want to make us a target, you know. But it's like there's that there's a fascinating sense of adventure from that, isn't it, as well? You know what I mean? Like, you know, from the news we're hearing, is it to get a reaction? You know what I mean? Is it to make us do something? You know, or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I wouldn't say that we listen to the news. Obviously,
No.
we have the radio on pretty much all day for the dogs as
so you
background
always
noise.
hear the news.
So the news might come on, and sometimes if I've got the radio on in the living room as well, sometimes I turn it off when the news comes on because I don't want to think about it.
No.
At a certain time. It's not.
Well,
it's not trying to be ignorant, but
No,
I
no,
like to
no.
pick and choose when I want to.
This is
see the news.
Yeah, that's how I described
Or
it
hear
as well to someone recently. They were like, "What? You don't even watch the news or those kind of stuff?" It's like, no, but you always hear about the news. But it's like you. I mean, I actively do look at the news, but it's on my own terms.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's how I always say it.
That's why well, I'm not sure how long it'll last, but I've taken a little bit of a step back from Twitter.
Yeah,
and
you do it every now and again anyway.
Yeah, I do, because I think sometimes it's healthy to step away from that and go, you know what? I need a breather, because not only are you getting...
Digital minimalism. Throw away your phone, Laura.
No! That was our previous episode, wasn't it?
that was.
But yeah, I mean, there's certain things like you can get a lot of people's personal news.
Yeah.
Or what's going on in their town that you may not necessarily know because you live halfway around the world. And
But that is a hilarious thing, isn't it? And I think that's the funniest thing. You think like that lady who you nearly ran over with a bike the other day, she like her, you know, what she wants in the news is, you know, a new cycle lane down our local town centre. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. You know what I mean? Thinking like, you know, or like, you know,
well, that is
one
the
of
funny
our
thing,
neighbours,
because
you know,
I follow our local newspaper on Facebook, pretty much to get local updates. And there are topics like, how do you feel about them pedestrianising this area and things? And you're just a bit like,
really?
Is that news? But in a way, you're kind of like, actually, it is, because it does
because it affects you.
Us. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, not being negative, but it tends to be, you know, people that are going to go do a marathon or go donate for charity or a GoFundMe. It's going to be something that they're physically affected by, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, MS is a huge thing for you and your mum and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, so that is a, you know, if I'm going to say, oh, I'm trying to collect money for MS, and that's going to be more on your heartstrings, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because
than me saying something else. Yeah.
I've witnessed the troubles that people go through that have MS and their families.
Exactly.
Whereas I probably wouldn't pick
asbestosis. You know,
I wouldn't pick Parkinson's, because I personally don't know anybody with Parkinson's.
No.
But that's not to say that it's any less important.
No.
It's just people do choose things that they're more affected by.
Yeah.
And it is a shame, but it's the same with the news. You are picking things that are going to directly affect you. And that's why I feel like the media goes, shall we tell stories about, you know, different races, different classes and things like that? Because will it affect a predominantly white...
Will people listen is the biggest
you know,
question.
things like that,
is there enough kidnap in this story? Is there enough murder?
And and it's usually who is being affected. Like, is it a child? Is it a 35-year-old man?
Yeah.
Like, people are more going to be upset. That wasn't very good grammar. Are going to be more upset about a small white British child that's on holiday with her middle class family being taken under mysterious circumstances than a 25-year-old black guy from London, or you know, from America.
I don't want to go too deep into stuff kind of thing, because obviously, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's like, but it is a bit like, you know, it's always that thing of like, oh, okay, you know, a gunman has shot up, you know, all this kind of stuff. Oh, he's white, therefore it's now, you know, mentally ill
I do
person.
think you need to go deep into it, because...
Okay, well, let's do it.
Well,
we're here for the conversation.
I think we already are, you know,
good.
And that's what the news...
You're dragging me into it, and I'm just being thrown backwards.
I don't think there's any... You can't be, I'm not sure if this works, but complacent about these things. And if you're going to talk about the news, you need to talk about all aspects.
Let's do it.
And... Yeah, the media is predominantly owned by white
Rupert Murdoch.
men, rich white men.
Yeah.
No name dropping, Paul.
No.
Not in a good way, but and so they're gonna pick news stories that are gonna affect the people that are gonna read those papers.
But what I'm saying to you though, is they're just gonna translate what people want to hear.
I know, but the people that read The Sun are only gonna read what.
Well, don't go categorising people.
I know, because your dad read The Sun, but he's
mostly only one page, but yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake. He's like of a certain age group, from a certain class background.
And you think, obviously, with the Hillsborough disaster, they totally just no one read The Sun ever again because of the stuff in which they
exactly
had done.
And there's going to be certain things that will put people off certain news media. I mean, I don't actually.
Daily Mail gets a bad rep, doesn't it?
For goodness sake.
Daily Mail gets a bit of a bad rep, doesn't it?
You literally, it's a hobby of Paul's to go through the comments.
I love winding.
And he finds a news story and reads through the comments. And yeah, you see the kind of people that actually enjoy being angry at things that you would normally class as, that's moving forward and things like that.
That fascinates me the most, like about news and stuff, and like I say, from our perspective of like digital marketing and the internet and all this kind of stuff, like what's gonna get people talking, what's gonna create stuff or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's like. I hate it. I love it, and I hate it with these like titles. You know what I mean? Of these
clickbait.
Just clickbait. That's all it is. But I click on it. You know what I mean? Like that is interesting. How did they do that? You know what I mean? Or where is this going? So it is entertainment as much as it shouldn't be, because it's
it is both. You studying and learning, and then also being entertained at the same time.
I'll tell you what, Laura. Let's have a little break.
And we're back.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And this is kind of the thing. This is a thought-provoking topic, and hopefully it kind of makes people think a little bit more, because it makes me think a little bit more anyway. So it might just be ramblings of a madman again. But the other thing I wanted to go into is a few other stories which broke first on social media, which was obviously the Me Too movement, which was a huge positive. Well, it's a negative subject, but it's such a positive thing for social media for people to actually have a voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I remember we were in Walt Disney World.
We were
in Florida, and all the stuff about Harvey Weinstein came up.
Totally.
And I think because we were in America, we were getting a lot of news media coverage, and the news is constant in America.
Yeah.
And the headline story was Harvey Weinstein being accused of sexual assault and rape of a number of women who worked with him or for him.
Yeah.
And I remember just going, wow. And there was this whole thing. I think a lot of people believe that because I think it was Rose McGowan, is that her name?
Yep.
Who started telling her stories. People believe that she was the one who kicked off the Me Too movement, but that wasn't the case. I'm awful because I haven't done any research. I don't have any notes in front of me, but it was actually a black woman who wasn't a celebrity. I don't believe.
No.
But everyone did their like a blackout where they weren't going to talk on Twitter. They weren't going to use social media.
And
there was a lot of
that was big.
Should we be doing this, or should we be speaking up? Should we continue talking? And the same thing happened with Black Lives Matter. After George Floyd. George Floyd's murder. And we keep going back to this, don't we? It's
important.
It is important, and it shouldn't be forgotten.
No.
So, but this is where the news does come in, and do you silence certain topics or in sort of like a protest?
Yeah.
Or do you just keep talking?
Yeah.
And that was a big debate as well. Why are you silencing yourself? You should be talking about this.
Yeah, I remember that though. Like I genuinely remember that on the internet where like you think the internet is broken because nothing's being posted. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that was fascinating. And then it's like, wow, you know, so it's like a sit down protest or like, you know,
Silent protest, but at the same time, you could just have not posted that day.
yeah.
Sometimes I think things should be silent. But if you're doing things in person, that's a different.
But how powerful are we as the people now with social media in our hands? You know what I mean? Like, you know, the whole of the Egypt, you know, uprising or whatever, you know, that was all on social media.
Yeah.
And those were people that were being silenced by their government.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time it is incredible getting people's personal stories through Twitter about subjects that may come out on the news, but they don't go into enough detail.
No.
So when you get people's personal stories and they've got their own evidence to show,
Yeah.
you know, and it's funny reading the comments underneath from places like The Sun, and they'll go, can we use this? Can we use this? And it's no, because this is my story. You can't take this away and use it for your benefit, because you could twist things.
I mean, you see that quite often as well, don't you?
You do a lot, especially with photos. It's like, no, because you could crop this photo and make it anything you like.
And it's so easy to bias something just with the headline.
Exactly,
That's the kind of big thing, isn't it, really? But I tell you what, I wanted to ask you, well, I tell you what, maybe I don't want to shove you on the spot because it might be like you might not have something in mind.
Shove me on the spot.
Okay. What is the most memorable news story? Like it was the first thing that comes to mind of a memorable. I don't want you to think about it. I don't want you to have any bias to it.
I've already got it.
I just want you to, because I've got one as well.
The first time I ever, for a news outbreak.
Yep.
First one was probably the death of Princess Diana.
Honestly, that was my one. That seems so British, doesn't it?
Which is funny because my mum's first ever news flash story was the death of Princess Grace Kelly.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool, but obviously not cool.
Sorry,
but you're like
Grace of Monaco.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That
it's usually something to do with a royal.
Yeah, that blew my. I knew exactly where I was. I was, you know, it was in the morning. I switched on the TV. My mum and dad were still asleep, and then I ran and woke them up and said, "Oh, it's the Princess of Wales, Princess Diana." And they were like, yeah. I said, oh, she's died. Mum was like, no, she hasn't. You know what I mean? Like, I was still pretty young. You know what I mean? She's like, no. I went, well, that's what they've said on the news. And then she woke up.
Yeah.
Then she woke up my dad. You know what I mean? It was such a huge thing. There
are very few stories that really I can remember from growing up. The next one was probably 9/11.
I'm about to say, like, that's definitely my second most memorable.
Again, death, terror, sadness.
Totally extraordinary. So unusual.
Yeah, that we didn't really. I mean, at that age, I think I was about 9 years old.
Yeah.
Terrorist attacks weren't
a thing.
I didn't know.
Well, I mean,
obviously they were a thing because we had obviously everything going on with the CIA over here, and you know, wars.
The CIA, IRA,
sorry, CIA. Sorry.
No, but yeah, like I remember that was a big thing growing up. Like, you know, a lot of people would talk about it. You know, like we lived pretty close to like an army barracks and stuff. Which there was bomb threats and all that kind of stuff. So, but it definitely wasn't in. I don't know. It was a whole different thing, wasn't it? Like, you know.
It didn't feel
planes were like a safe thing, weren't they? You know, in like our minds.
It did. I think that made us scared of a lot of things. Totally. It made us scared of people.
Much fear.
Made us scared of going to New York.
Yeah.
Or any major city.
Yeah.
It made people scared of flying.
Yeah.
You know, there's people that never flew again after that because they were meant to be on that flight.
Yeah. But I kind of did prove the point, though, that the stories that are memorable are horrific.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to say the next one. Do you remember those two girls, Holly and Jessica, that got kidnapped by their caretaker?
Yeah, at school,
and his girlfriend. And it was just, I remember did a thing on the radio through the night, and I left my radio on all night.
Yeah.
Like someone, if you come forward, we'll negotiate, tell us where they are.
Yeah.
And no one did. And I was so disappointed because they're about my age.
Yeah, that was the thing, wasn't it? It was relatable.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? It's another one of those things again.
Yeah.
But,
and then so many, I forgot the little girl's name. Sarah, was it Sarah something?
Sarah Payne.
Sarah Payne.
Yeah,
Sarah Payne.
See, another memorable one.
Yeah. And then, Madeline McCann. And just, it's always these small, white, cute kids. And but can you name other stories that were happening around the world that...
Yeah, but it probably wasn't pushed as much to us.
No.
Like, as in, so that obviously is the media's responsibility.
Yeah.
Potentially, you know, but it's the double-edged sword. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? They're only going to push what we want to hear,
but
and we're only going to hear what they're going to put.
The more you get something, the more you probably start caring about it. But the thing is this vicious cycle where you go, right, the more you see positive news, are people going to just stop watching, or are they going to start wanting to see it because they realise the effect it has on them?
Okay, I tell you what, let's kind of come to a conclusion then with something a little bit different then. Hopefully something a little bit positive. What's the last positive story you heard? Yeah, I'm the same because I haven't thought about this. I'm just totally putting ourselves on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, like
maybe
I said,
the coronavirus vaccine.
That I think,
which obviously huge positive news.
I'm really rubbish with names. Is it Sir Thomas More?
Oh yeah.
Well, is it Thomas More?
I think so.
Oh God, we have to Google that one. I'm so sorry, but
it wasn't that memorable.
No, but of course it was. He raised millions of pounds.
Phenomenal.
And he got
Spitfire
knighted.
Pilot.
And Paul, please Google it.
Yeah, I will.
Because I really want to, and I'm going to say that is it. Also, an elderly lady. I think she was about 97 years old. That was on our local newspaper page. She did something similar. She raised loads of money for the NHS. Did I get it right?
I don't know yet.
Oh God. See, that's the problem. You remember things that are sad, or I'm just terrible with names and words.
No, but that really does prove the point. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right. Tom Moore. Okay, that's good. There's faith in humanity still. You did remember it correctly. But and obviously, I'm not sure if he has been knighted yet.
No, he has.
He has, sir. He is a sir. I mean, how cool is that?
With a sword and everything, outdoors with the Queen.
Amazing. And I saw him get interviewed from David Beckham. You know, like. Fascinating, and it does show that we do want to hear good stories. Yeah,
and it is amazing that
even if the names aren't that memorable, but Thomas More is such a famous name as well. You know?
It sounds so British. But I do love positive stories.
Just not as much as.
But to be honest, I do avoid.
What's the last positive TV show you watched? What's the last
Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Okay, there
Brooklyn
you go.
Nine-Nine. That makes me laugh.
Okay, that's cool.
But I don't tend to go looking for the news. I don't tend to try and listen for it. Most of my positive news involves dogs. Doing sweet things or getting better again.
German Shepherds resuscitating.
That chubby German Shepherd that wasn't looked after very well. And he lost the weight and he was a happy boy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We love animals more than we do people.
Yeah,
like
and
in
that's the
culture
thing.
as well.
I'd rather just sit and watch animal things and find out the good of humanity.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. I honestly think it was a good news subject. A good subject. You know what I mean? It's good to talk about these things.
And that's the thing. When you suggested doing
news, you shot me down again. You keep shooting me down, but actually they're not bad.
I think it's probably because you're coming up with all the topics.
There's so many.
I know. You've got your book. But
so
you start talking about it and it does make you think, actually, how much attention do we pay to the news and how does it affect us and how does it affect the people that are involved in the news story? How much does their life change? Like with Bernie Getz.
Wow.
the Subway Vigilante.
Yeah, that was the latest documentary we watched.
Yeah, that's on
Trial by Media.
Trial by Media on
Yeah,
Netflix.
that was good.
Watch that. It's really, really good. But that really does show how things can change your life. And even years later.
That was the inspiration for this podcast, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And actually also it was the inspiration for the Joker movie.
Yeah, great film.
Which
Definitely
we realised when watching it again.
Yeah, we were
the other
like,
night.
wait a minute, this seems a bit familiar
this
as a story.
sounds,
But I tell you what, Laura, let's end on just like kind of saying to people, you know, let's just create more positivity. You know, there is a lot of sad in the world, and obviously we need to be aware of that. And there's a lot of stuff that we're not aware of, or, you know, so it's about finding stuff, isn't it? It's about finding your own news.
Make people find...
looking at it subjectively is the important bit, isn't it?
Sharing more stories that are less known, whether it's positive or whether it's just something that we as a society need to recognise and look for. Because sometimes you may not know things are happening, and it can be a lesson learned as well. And so it is very important to keep sharing stories, even old stories, if things aren't progressing. So just keep sharing it, and try and find positive, good news, and drop us comments to say what positive news you've read or listened to or seen lately.
And how can the people do that, Laura?
The people can do that by following us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at TruthsPod.
That's good. And obviously be sure to subscribe if you enjoy what you're listening to. There's now quite a multitude of different subjects, you know, so be sure to check out all the old school stuff, you know, about us and crazy surprise weddings and that kind of stuff. You can search for us at Truth About on all of your podcast services such as Apple, Podbean, Overcast, etc.
Confusion filled sea of doubt. It's time to hear the truth about confusion filled sea of doubt. It's time to hear the truth about